The sky above Charleston was a dull gray that morning, pressing low and heavy over the rows of old townhouses and cobbled streets, as though it too carried the weight Sarah held in her chest. Rain tapped gently against the cafe window, blurring the view outside, while inside the air was warm with the scent of espresso and fresh pastries. Sarah sat tucked away in the corner of the small coffee shop, her scarf looped loosely around her neck, fingers wrapped tightly around a chipped mug. Her sketchpad sat in front of her, open to a page she'd started and stopped at least 5 times already. Charcoal smudges stained her fingertips, and a faint trace of gray dust streaked her cheek. Her eyes, once wide with fire and inspiration, now looked tired and dim. She was 34, too young to be giving up and too old, it seemed, to still be chasing dreams with nothing to show for them. Her last art show had been 6 months ago, a modest collection in a tiny community gallery. 4 people had shown up. None bought anything. The landlord was patient, but not endlessly so. Her fridge was nearly empty. She'd cut her internet, and her beloved cat, Maple, had to switch to the cheapest food at the corner store. Sarah sighed, running a finger over a line she'd just drawn and erased it again. Her thoughts wandered back, far beyond the empty cups and unpaid bills. She remembered being a child, maybe 7, sitting cross-legged on the floor of her bedroom, surrounded by torn sketchbooks and watercolor stains. Her father, a gentle man, with deep laugh lines and a worn corduroy jacket, used to kneel beside her and pretend to be a curious art critic, always asking what her newest masterpiece meant. This one, she'd giggle. "Ah, it's a flying elephant that's looking for its lost birthday balloon." Her father would nod seriously, then clap. "Brilliant. Symbolic. I feel its sadness." It was her mother who worried. "She needs a real plan." She'd say art won't pay rent. But Sarah, young and bright-eyed, had believed in her paintbrush. She went to art school on a partial scholarship, took a job waiting tables, painted into the early hours. Her professors praised her. Life was harder outside the safety of classrooms. She tried everything: freelance gigs, teaching kids, Etsy shops. And each rejection chipped away a little more of her confidence. Her fingers curled tighter around the mug. What was she even doing? "I think it's beautiful," came a voice. She looked up, startled. A man stood a few feet away, mid-60s perhaps, with kind eyes and a salt and pepper beard. He wore a gray sweater under a tailored jacket and held a cup of coffee in one hand, the other tucked into his pocket. "I'm sorry," she said, blinking. He gestured gently toward her sketchbook. "The figure. It's very full of longing." Sarah blinked again. People rarely commented on her work. Most never noticed. She looked down at the sketch. It was barely formed. A woman sitting alone on a park bench, her back slightly hunched, her head turned away. "It's not finished," Sarah mumbled. "I hope you do finish it," she said, and then paused, studying her face. "You look like you've forgotten how to believe in yourself." Sarah let out a weak laugh, not unkindly. "That obvious, huh? I was once an artist, the man said. Long ago, gave it up, regretted it every day. She tilted her head, intrigued. Why did you stop? 'Cause I listened to the wrong voices, he said, then looked directly into her eyes. Don't make that mistake. There was a long, quiet moment between them. Then, gently, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He placed it on the table and gave her a warm smile. I'm not trying to be dramatic, but I think your art matters. This is my number. I run a small gallery now. Nothing big. But if you ever decide to finish that sketch, or anything else, I'd like to show your work. Before she could find the words to respond, he nodded, tipped his cup, and walked out, disappearing into the soft drizzle. Sarah stared at the paper. Her hands trembled. A stranger affect her so deeply. It did. It reminded her that someone still believed. That night, she didn't sleep. She stayed up sketching. Over the next weeks, Sarah painted like she hadn't in years. Something had shifted. She woke early, often before dawn, and painted until her hands ached. She pulled out old canvases, revisited unfinished pieces. Her apartment was cluttered with new colors, new shapes, new emotion. She called the man, eventually. His name was Jack Carter. His gallery was tucked between a bakery and a bookstore with worn wooden floors and pale blue walls. He remembered her instantly. They met for tea. Jack listened, patiently and without judgment, as Sarah spoke about her doubts, her failures, her longing. He never tried to fix her, listened, encouraged, offered space. Jack told her about his past. He had once been an illustrator in New York. He painted vibrant cityscapes, and abstract portraits that found homes in a few modest shows. But then, life happened. His wife fell ill. The medical bills came. The freelance jobs dried up. He gave up art to take a stable job in insurance. It paid the bills, he said, but it hollowed me out. After his wife passed, he moved to Charleston and used her small inheritance to open the gallery, not for profit, for redemption, he said softly, for people like us. Sarah cried that night, not because she was sad, but because someone finally saw her. 6 months later, Sarah's first real exhibit opened. The night was clear, the air crisp. The gallery was modest but full. People wandered the space slowly, pausing to admire the raw emotion in Sarah's work. A couple wept quietly in front of a piece titled "Morning Without Maple," a tribute to the cat who had passed a few weeks prior. Jack stood quietly in the corner, watching her. When she looked his way, he lifted his glass slightly. She smiled back. A local paper ran a piece the following week. The soul of a city. How one artist is making Charleston feel again. Sales came slowly at first, then steadily. A private collector reached out, then a museum. Sarah was overwhelmed, not by fame, but by the quiet validation that maybe she hadn't been wrong to hope. But the real reward wasn't the money or attention. It was the message from a young woman in Minnesota. Your painting made me feel less alone. I haven't painted in years. I'm going to try again. Sarah printed the message and pinned it above her easel. Jack continued to stop by with coffee and conversation. He never took credit. All I did was notice, he'd say with a shrug. But Sarah knew it was more than that. She began to hold workshops for struggling artists. She taught not just technique, but courage. She told them about her journey, her failures. A turning point, years passed. Jack passed away quietly one spring morning. Sarah inherited the gallery. She kept everything the same except she painted the front door in bold turquoise, his favorite color dot. She renamed it the Carter Gallery of Second Chances. Every month, she features a new artist who once felt invisible. She ends every session the same way. Believe in your work. And if you can't believe in yourself today, find someone who will. Then be that person for someone else. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to The Kind Story. Let's keep spreading kindness, one story at a time. Disclaimer: this story is fictional or dramatized for storytelling purposes and complies with YouTube's policies.